Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take, well, just stacks of research and notes, and we really try to boil it all down to the key insights, the surprising stuff, just for you. Today, we're diving deep into the global beauty products market.
A huge one.
Absolutely massive. And think of this as your shortcut, your fast track to understanding where this whole industry is actually going. Our main source today, it's the Global Beauty Market Pulse 2021-2033 report. Comes from Cognitive Market Research.
So our mission here is to unpack everything, global picture, regional differences, even down to specific countries. We want to map out that trajectory, from 2021 all the way to 2033.
It's so important, isn't it? Because understanding beauty market growth, it's really more than just lipstick and lotions.
Right.
It taps into consumer trends, definitely innovation, and, well, broader global economics.
Right.
It's fascinating how this market kind of mirrors bigger shifts happening everywhere.
Totally agree. Okay, so let's start big picture, the scale. Global revenue back in 2021, over $264 billion.
Already a huge number. It's huge. And the projection for 2025 is around $327.5 billion. But here's the kicker. By 2033, it's forecast to surge past $500 billion.
Wow.
Yeah, $502 billion. That works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of roughly 5.5%. Almost 5.486% to be exact.
Which is pretty robust year on
Totally
year.
robust.
And the report points to, well, basically three main things driving that kind of global growth.
Yeah.
You've got just increasing consumer demand pretty much everywhere. Then there's constant product innovation, think personalized stuff, clean beauty, sustainable options.
At least something new.
Exactly. And the third big one is the expanding middle class, especially in, emerging economies. More people, more spending power.
Makes sense. So how does that break down regionally? Let's start with North America,
Okay.
a real powerhouse.
Right.
In 2021, the market there was valued at nearly $60 billion. That's $59.5 billion. It's projected to climb steadily, hitting over $103 billion by 2033. The CAGR there is a bit lower, 4.7%. Still strong growth, though.
Solid, yeah.
Now, within North America, the U.S. is the giant, obviously. About $47.5 billion in 2021, heading towards $81.4 billion by 2033. That's a 4.6% CAGR.
Right.
But interestingly, Canada and Mexico actually show slightly faster growth rates.
Mm-hmm.
Canada started around $8 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at $15 billion by 2033, that's a 5.3% CAGR. And Mexico, from just under $4 billion up to nearly $7 billion, growing at almost 5%, 4.9%.
So North America, it's like the report says, it's that stable expansion region.
Yeah.
Maybe not the explosive growth we'll see elsewhere, but it's mature, high value, keeps innovating. It shows even established markets, they still grow consistently as tastes change.
Good point. Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic to Europe.
Right.
Market value there was over $51 billion in 2021, projected to hit over $91 billion by 2033. The overall KGR for Europe, nearly 5%, 4.99%.
Pretty similar to North America overall, then.
Similar overall, yeah.
Yeah.
But the picture within Europe is really varied. Germany, for example, is leading the charge.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, almost $11.5 billion in 2021, forecast to nearly double to almost $22 billion by 2033. That's a strong 5.6% CAGR.
Yeah, okay.
The UK is also doing well, over 5.3% CAGR. France shows steady gains, about 4.4%. Italy, around 4.6%. But then you see Russia. It's forecast to grow, sure, from about $2.7 billion to $4.1 billion, but the CGR is much lower, just under 3.5%. That's the lowest one specifically called out.
That's a really key point, that variation. It makes you wonder, what's behind those different speeds in a market like Europe.
Right.
I mean, Germany's strength could be tied to that push for sustainable beauty, maybe better e-commerce. Russia's slower pace, maybe different economic factors, price sensitivity. It just shows Europe isn't one single market dynamic.
Definitely not a monolith. Okay, so if Europe is varied, where's the real boom happening?
Well, the report points squarely at Asia Pacific.
Figured you might say that.
Yeah.
Called the fastest growing region.
By a long shot. The numbers are pretty staggering. Started at almost $118.5 billion in 2021. Projected to hit $238.5 billion by 2033. That's a massive jump. And the CAGR is over 6%, 6.011%.
Wow, okay. So who's leading the charge there?
Well, China is obviously huge. It's going from roughly $36 billion to over $73.8 billion. That's a 6.2% CAGR.
Impressive.
Japan's also very solid, growing at over 5.2%. South Korea, always a trendsetter, looking strong too, heading past $20 billion with a 5.4% CAGR.
But you saved the best for last, didn't you?
I did. India. The report highlights India as just an absolute standout performer.
What are the numbers?
Get this, $16.2 billion in 2021, projected to hit $36 billion by 2033. The CJAR, almost 6.9%.
6.9. That's the highest figure we've seen anywhere.
It is the highest mentioned across all the data.
Incredible.
And you can see how those drivers we talked about, innovation, youth consumption, digital retail, how they just explode in APAC.
Yeah.
For India, that nearly 7% growth,
Yeah.
it's driven by, a rising middle class, everyone getting smartphones, tons of new, often digital-first brands popping up. It's a perfect storm, really.
A perfect storm for growth. Okay, let's shift gears again. South America. What's the story there?
Vibrant is a good word for it. The overall market was just over $16 billion in 2021.
Sir?
Expected to nearly double, hitting over $31.7 billion by 2033. That's a strong KGR too, almost 5.8%.
So healthy growth.
Yeah.
Any standouts within the region?
Brazil's a major player, of course, forecast to go from about $5.8 billion to over $11 billion.
Right.
But Argentina actually shows even stronger percentage growth, from about $3 billion to over $6.3 billion. That's a KGR of nearly 6.3%.
Another one over 6%.
Yep. And others like Colombia, Peru, Chile, all showing healthy growth rates over 5.2% CGR.
So what does that signal for the region?
It just signals, well, clearly growing beauty awareness, rising consumption. It fits that global picture urbanization, global trends influencing local tastes, maybe a focus on natural ingredients, which is big there.
Makes sense. Okay, 2 more regions to cover. Let's head to the Middle East. Market value there was just over $10 billion in 2021, projected to grow to nearly $19.7 billion by 2033. The CAGR is solid, over 5.7%.
Another strong growth there.
Definitely. Saudi Arabia leads an absolute value forecast to hit over $5.3 billion with a 5.8% CAGR. But the report really flags Turkey and the UAE.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, particularly high CAGRs there. Turkey at 6.1% and the UAE at 6.5%.
6.5%. That's up there with the APAC leaders.
Exactly. It rivals some of the best in Asia. Egypt, Qatar, others also contribute steadily too.
And the drivers there likely increase consumer spending power, right? Modernizing retail landscapes.
That's what the report suggests.
Yeah, especially in Turkey and the UAE, you've probably got high disposable incomes, a young population tuned into global trends, big investments in luxury retail, e-commerce. It's a really receptive market.
And sophisticated and growing market. Okay, last stop, Africa.
Right.
The market size is smaller currently, starting at nearly $9 billion in 2021. But it's expected to show good promise, climbing to over $17.3 billion by 2033. The CGR is just over 5%, 5.06%.
Still respectable growth.
It is. Nigeria, for instance, is expected to roughly double its market size from $1.65 billion to over $3.2 billion, with a 5.2% CAGR. South Africa also shows strong momentum. It's forecast to grow from about $3.4 billion to over $7 billion. That's a CAGR of nearly 5.7%.
And the report uses a key phrase for Africa, doesn't it? Untapped potential.
It does. What does that signify to you?
Well, it's not just about the current numbers. It points to the future. You've got a very young population, growing internet access, rising interest in personal care that's maybe still in earlier stages compared to other regions.
Room to grow.
Exactly. As things develop, infrastructure improves, access gets better. This is definitely a region to watch for, potentially much faster growth down the line.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's try and synthesize all this. We've gone around the globe. What's the big picture takeaway?
I mean, the overarching story is pretty clear, isn't it? Strong growth, diverse growth, happening everywhere. It's truly global.
No doubt.
But you can definitely see different patterns. North America, Europe, they're the steady, stable expansion zones. Important, high value, but steady.
Right.
The real acceleration, though, that's clearly happening in Asia Pacific, South America, and the Middle East. Those regions are really pushing the envelope.
And the drivers seem pretty consistent across the board, even with those different growth speeds.
Yeah, it keeps coming back to a few key things. Rising incomes, absolutely massive digital and e-commerce influence.
Huge factor.
Evolving grooming trends, men's grooming, wellness focus, and just really smart youth-focused marketing.
And the report specifically flagged a few countries as pushing boundaries in growth and innovation.
It did. Worth keeping a special eye on India, China, the UAE, Argentina, and Singapore. Those seem to be the ones really setting the pace and trends.
Got it. It really paints a picture of the next decade being, as the report says, transformative and inclusive for beauty.
Absolutely. It's an exciting space to watch.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive into the global beauty market. We really hope this gives you a clearer picture of this incredibly dynamic industry.
It's certainly complex.
It is. And just a quick reminder, all the numbers and insights we discussed today came straight from that cognitive market research report, the Global Beauty Market Pulse 2021-2033.
So as you think about all these shifts, this, massive growth happening in so many different places, here's maybe a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
With the industry becoming so global, so interconnected, driven by all these economic and cultural forces, how might the actual definition of beauty keep evolving? Will it become even more inclusive, more diverse, reflecting all these different regions and consumers over the next decade? And what does that mean for you, whether you're a consumer or just watching these big global trends unfold?
That's a great question. Definitely something to think about. Keep an eye on these trends, see how they play out around you. Thanks again for joining us on the Deep Dives. We'll catch you next time. Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever stopped to think about how much the beauty products you see, on shelves or even online have changed just in the last few years?
It's pretty staggering, actually.
Right. It's not just like new formulas. It feels like a completely different landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the global beauty products market to really unpack this powerful transformation.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive really is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from our sources. We're going to look at the main forces driving and sometimes restraining this really vibrant market.
And the trends too, right? The exciting
Okay.
stuff.
Exactly. And the exciting trends that are redefining how we look at beauty today. It's a complex, dynamic world out there, and we're here to guide you through it.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Let's start with what's really propelling this market forward. What are the big drivers?
Well, one of the most significant engines, I think, is this heightened consumer awareness around personal grooming. It's huge.
Awesome.
As disposable incomes rise and, urban lifestyles get more fast-paced, consumers are consciously investing more in skincare, cosmetics, hair care, you name it.
And it's not just about looking good, is it?
No, not entirely. It's about personal confidence, for sure, but also increasingly about professional presence. How you present yourself matters more. And what's fascinating here is how social media platforms and the rise of beauty influencers have just poured fuel on this fire. They've really catalyzed this shift.
Yeah, you can't escape them online.
Right. And it's not just about seeing more products. It's almost like a democratization of beauty expertise.
Interesting term. What do you mean by that?
Well, these influencers, they might not have traditional credentials, but they build massive trust. People see them as authentic. And that fundamentally shifts how consumers get advice and perceive products, often bypassing the brand's own messaging entirely.
That really changes the game, doesn't it?
Complete.
And that ties right into the next driver, I guess. The surge in online and what we call omni-channel retailing.
Absolutely. Digital platforms have utterly revolutionized how beauty products are discovered, evaluated, and, ultimately purchased.
We're talking mobile shopping apps, right?
Yeah.
Influencer endorsements.
Yeah. Those plus virtual try-on tools, AI recommendations. It's a whole new way of engaging, especially for millennials and Gen Z. They expect this now.
It feels like it's not just selling online versus in-store anymore.
No, it's more than just selling on multiple platforms. It's about creating a seamless, integrated customer journey. Whether you're researching on TikTok, trying a virtual filter on Instagram, or walking into a physical store to buy.
So it benefits the consumer, obviously.
Convenience. Definitely convenience for you, the consumer. But it's also huge for brands. This digital boom lets them reach global audiences, tap into emerging markets, often with minimal physical setup. It's profoundly altered their market access strategies.
Okay, so more awareness, easier shopping. What else? There's this whole clean beauty thing, too.
Right. That leads us to the third big driver, the growing preference for natural and organic formulations. Today's beauty consumers are just much more health aware.
Which boosts demand for clean label products.
Exactly. But this desire for a clean label isn't just about natural in this sort of old sense. It often reflects a broader skepticism towards complex synthetic ingredients.
And a demand for transparency.
A demand for radical transparency, yeah, in sourcing and formulation. Often this means fewer ingredients, getting rid of things like parabens, phthalates, certain sulfates, things people scrutinize.
And it ties into ethics, too, like cruelty-free.
Very much so. Ethical sourcing, cruelty-free practices are often part of that clean expectation. It's a clear move away from traditional synthetic chemicals, and it's pushing manufacturers to invest heavily in, well, transparency, but also innovation to meet this demand.
Okay, so that's a powerful picture of growth, innovation.
Mm.
Sounds great. But like any booming market, it can't all be smooth sailing. What are some of the hurdles, the restraints?
Oh, definitely not all smooth sailing. A major one is the strict regulatory framework.
Like the FDA or EU rules.
Exactly. Compliance with bodies like the FDA and EU cosmetics regulation is crucial, obviously, for safety and efficacy. But,
But it costs money and time.
right, it comes with significant financial and logistical burdens. It adds considerable costs to product development, and it can really slow down time to market. This hits smaller and mid-sized brands particularly hard. They're trying to break through, and this is a big barrier.
Yeah, I can see that. It sounds like a real challenge for new players.
Mm-mm.
Does that mean only the big companies can really afford it, or are smaller brands finding ways around it?
That's a really good question. The larger players definitely have an advantage, no doubt. But we are seeing smaller indie brands often focus on niche markets or use direct-to-consumer models to try and manage some of those
But it's
costs.
still a hurdle.
Oh, it's undeniable. A big chunk of their early money often goes just towards getting over those regulatory hurdles. And then there's the sheer competition, market saturation.
Right, thousands of brands.
Literally thousands. From luxury houses down to drugstore basics, plus this explosion of indie labels online, it's just incredibly difficult for any single brand to genuinely stand out anymore.
It's kind of a paradox, isn't it? We, as consumers, want more choice, but then that huge amount of choice makes it really hard to feel loyal to any one brand.
Exactly. And that leads straight into aggressive price wars, product life cycles getting shorter and shorter.
Because the next new thing is always coming.
Constantly. Plus, the high cost of digital marketing just to get noticed. All of this squeezes profit margins for everyone, established players and the newcomers. It's a constant battle for attention, not just for your money.
And this ties into another challenge, right? That growing consumer scrutiny, people looking closely at ingredients.
Yes, absolutely. Many consumers are now actively avoiding products with ingredients like parabens, sulfates, synthetic dyes.
Why? What are the concerns?
Well, there are fears about allergic reactions, maybe hormonal disruption, or other potential health effects. Whether those fears are always scientifically grounded is another debate, but the perception is powerful.
Some people are more cautious.
Much more cautious about trying unfamiliar brands or products that haven't been, thoroughly vetted or transparently explained. This forces brands to invest heavily in research, safety testing, and validation just to earn and keep consumer trust.
That makes sense. That awareness is definitely a force. But is there a risk of, sometimes you hear the term chemophobia, people avoiding perfectly safe ingredients just because they sound chemical?
That's a valid point, and it's a real challenge for the industry. The task for brands isn't just formulating safe products anymore, it's also about educating consumers, explaining the science behind ingredients, whether they're natural or synthetic.
So transparency again?
Transparency and communication, yeah, backed up by solid research, that becomes absolutely paramount.
Okay, so challenges are real. Regulation, competition, scrutiny. But amidst all that, there are some genuinely exciting trends shaping the future of beauty, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. Despite the hurdles, there's incredible innovation happening. Let's talk about the rise of customization and AI-driven beauty tech.
Personalization.
Exactly. Brands are now offering incredibly personalized skincare and makeup solutions, things that were sci-fi a decade ago.
How does the AI part work?
Well, they're using sophisticated data analytics, AI tools, think skin analysis apps on your phone, detailed quizzes that feed into product recommendations.
So it helps you find the right shade or cream.
It goes beyond just recommending existing stuff. AI is pushing towards predictive personalization. Brands might anticipate your needs based on lifestyle data, maybe even biometrics down the line,
Wow.
potentially leading to truly bespoke formulations made just for you, maybe even on demand. It really shifts the whole idea from find what you like to here's what you need maybe before you even realize it.
I remember when getting a custom foundation felt super exclusive, like only for movie stars. Now my phone can practically do a skin scan. That's wild how fast it's changed.
It really is.
And moving beyond just me, the individual, there's another really compelling trend. This emergence of inclusive and gender-neutral beauty products.
Yes, definitely. We're seeing brands expand shade ranges dramatically finally,
Yeah.
offering unisex fragrances that aren't just, citrus. and promoting identity-agnostic messaging in their marketing.
What's the impact of that?
Well, two things, really. First, it caters to a much broader customer base, which makes business sense. But second, and maybe more importantly, it reflects these evolving cultural values around self-expression and representation. It's a big move towards a more open, accepting industry. Beauty isn't one size fits all.
It feels more reflective of reality now.
It certainly aims to be.
Yeah.
And then the third big trend, which we touched on earlier but is really taking center stage now, sustainability.
Driven by that clean label movement and packaging concerns.
Yeah, both. Environmentally responsible consumers are actively demanding recyclable, refillable, biodegradable packaging. It's becoming table stakes.
And ingredients, too.
Beyond packaging, absolutely. They're looking for short, clear ingredient lists. They want those third-party certifications, cruelty-free, vegan, fair trade maybe?
Yeah.
It's about the full supply chain, total transparency.
So brands that get this right have an advantage.
A clear competitive edge, yes. They're building deep trust, especially with the next generation of beauty buyers who often make choices based on their values. It's not just about the product anymore, it's about the brand's entire ethos.
Okay, so if we kind of connect all these dots,
Mm-hmm.
pull back for the bigger picture, what we've really seen is a beauty market evolving at this incredible pace.
Absolutely. Driven by digital transformation, this rising ethical consciousness, and a real hunger for personalization.
It seems like the brands that can adapt, that can navigate the regulations and the competition while embracing these trends,
Yep.
they're the ones poised to lead.
Without a doubt. They have to be agile.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? I think it means the choices available are more diverse, more tailored than they've ever been. And your preferences, your values as a consumer, they're actually shaping the industry from the ground up.
Which is pretty powerful. Your choices matter.
Yeah. But this raises an important question, doesn't it? As technology keeps advancing and consumer values keep evolving, how far can we actually push the boundaries of personalized and ethical beauty before we hit entirely new challenges?
That's interesting.
Maybe unforeseen ethical issues or data privacy concerns with all this AI personalization.
That's a fascinating thought to end on. The next frontier might not just be about what's in the bottle, but how the bottle and its contents got to you, what data journey it took, whole new layers of complexity.
Food for thought indeed. Definitely keep exploring the fascinating shifts in this space. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.